Because if you do not take care of yourself at the end of the day, how do you expect to be the best for your kids?
Okay, like they're not at my house, like there's nothing I can do about it, like I can't worry about it. Like that takes a lot of like strength and faith because...
I mean, it was so sweet because he was like, I don't want my sister to have type 1 diabetes.
I know. And I think this episode is a perfect example of why we're here, why we are doing Palmr, why we are doing the clothing brand. Hey Palmr fam, I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Nick.
And we are here for our second episode. And today's a very special day. If you are watching this on the day that it airs, it is World Diabetes Day.
Yes, it is.
Which is very important for us. So happy to be here. Well, happy that you're here. And happy to be here too. So I'm excited for this episode because we're going to like dig a little deeper today and kind of share more of Nick's story and the kiddo's story of getting first diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and how that all went down. It's probably going to be a bit of an emotional episode, but I think it's good. We need to get our story out there, so I'm excited for it. All right. So do we have any updates, Palmr updates right now?
Ooh, the biggest one, I think, is that today we are officially launching our pre-Black Friday sale. Now, if you want to get involved with it, you have to be on our mailing list.
Yes.
Only people on the mailing list get access to it. There's a special link in it. So if you're not, go sign up. There'll be a link in below. We are doing 40% off across the board. Everything is discounted. On top of that, if you order $50 worth of product, you get a free koozie set. Same one we always do. If you order $100, we're going to give you a free hat that you get to pick out one of our hats. And last, if you order $200 worth of product, we're going to let you pick out one of our graphic tees. If you hit 200, it's all of those things, not just pick one. It is all of them, plus free shipping at $75 as always. And this is the most important part. Normally, we give back 1% of our sales to type 1 diabetes. Because of this time of year and the fact that it is National World Diabetes Day and Diabetes Month, we are increasing our giving from 1% to 3%. So we're really excited about that.
So that 3% is starting today and goes through
the end of our Black Friday sales. So which will eventually end on Cyber Monday.
Yes. And some would say that this pre-Black Friday sale might be even better than our actual Black Friday sale.
Yes.
So make sure you're on that mailing list and we will link it all below so you can get yourself subscribed to
and
that.
We put it in the newsletter already for people who are already on the newsletter. Our pre-Black Friday sale will be our biggest sale because we're doing 40% off. On Black Friday, it moves down to 35%. Saturday will be 30, Sunday will be 25. And then on after Cyber Monday, it'll be 20%.
Yeah.
Do not wait. But as long as you're on our mailing list, you'll get the link from now until Thanksgiving, 40% off. So sign up for our mailing list.
Fun stuff. I'm excited. All right. So let's get started on today's episode. Basically, Nick, if you can go in and kind of, do you want to like share like your story first, or do you want to just go in and talk about how Parker was diagnosed and all that?
I think let's start with Parker, because this is going to be with the kids. And obviously, I'll start talking about how it's affected me in my life along that journey. My oldest son is Parker. He is currently 12 years old. Preteen
ages.
Driving me crazy.
Please say a prayer for us.
Yes, we need it right now. It's, oh my goodness. Okay.
There's a response back for everything.
There is a response back for literally everything. He's currently 12. When he was 2.5 years old, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. This was April of 2015. So he will be hitting the 10-year mark in a few months, which is crazy. 10 years of dealing with type 1 diabetes. Wow. Yeah.
So he was so tiny.
Oh, 100%.
Like a baby.
He was so little at that point.
So how did you like first find out? Like, how did you figure out that he had type 1 diabetes being such a little baby? Like, was he sick for a while? And then, like, talk to us about, like, that whole diagnosis and everything that went through that day.
Yeah, so
it was, like, one particular day that...
It was, the day he was diagnosed was a very epic day, but it was probably a month or two leading up to it that really kind of, when everything kind of freshly exploded. If you're familiar with type 1 diabetes, you will know the number one sign that there's a problem is increased urination.
Yeah.
And being 2.5 years old, he's still in diapers.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point where I thought every single diaper in the world was horrible. No diaper actually worked. He was having leaks on a daily basis.
So through any day. So were you like checking out different brands to see like what worked better?
I would try every single brand out there trying to find the one that would work.
Yeah.
I was just like, all these diapers are horrible.
Yeah.
There is a story that I remember. I had to go to the mall to pick up something. And I literally remember pulling up to the mall, knowing the situation. I would just try to be ahead of it and change his diaper as much as possible.
So knowing that he was having a lot of accidents.
Yeah. So literally pulled up to the mall, opened the trunk, laid him out, changed his diaper, fresh new diaper going in, put him in the stroller. I'm going through the mall. It has been maybe 15 minutes. And all of a sudden I feel something wet dripping down onto my shoes. And I look below into the stroller.
Yeah.
And you have a little basket normally that's underneath.
Mm-hmm.
There was about this much urine sitting in the basket that he had peed through his entire diaper, through the stroller.
And you're a first-time dad.
Oh, yeah.
So you're like, what in the world?
This is not normal.
So were you like asking other parent friends like, hey, is this normal? Like, do you guys have this?
And nobody was like, I mean, my kid pees a lot, but nobody like, that sounds excessive.
Yeah.
That was going on for probably a good almost 2 months. And it got really bad the night before he was diagnosed. And Parker was a really good kid, pretty quiet, and put him to bed. I remember putting him to bed, and he was like, I'm thirsty. So I'm like, I really don't want to give him water because he's just going to wet the bed. So I'm like, okay, I'll give you a little bit more. He's like, I need more water. And he's like, and I was like, Parker, you've had enough. Go to bed. So I put him in his room. He is literally banging on the door, screaming, I need water.
On what door?
The door to his bedroom.
Oh,
like screaming at the top of his lungs, I need water. I am thirsty.
He's out of a crib by now? Or was he in like that toddler bed?
I think he was in the toddler bed at that point.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I think he was in the toddler bed.
Then what? You wake up and you give...
Yeah, at that point I was just like, no.
Because you're just going to pee the bed.
Yeah, you're just going to pee the bed.
Yeah.
So sadly, that's what happened. That was a Saturday.
Okay.
It was Sunday. Get up, go to church. My parents were in town during that time. So we all went to church, and then we went out to get some lunch afterwards. And, Parker seemed normal at the beginning of the day. And then I started seeing him, kick me off from church and starts feeling kind of like, I don't know, like different, down. And so during lunch, my parents are in town. He loves his Bubba and Nana. That's what he calls them. Like obsessed with them. And they didn't live in our town, so they didn't see him very often. So normally he would be losing his mind.
Mm-hmm.
He did not want to go to them. He only wanted to be in my arms at that point. Mm-hmm. So I remember at the restaurant the entire time holding him. He didn't want to eat and literally was like acting like, trying to remember exactly, but...
Was it like he was getting sick?
Yeah, it was almost like he was sick, but he was like weak.
Okay.
And everything. And I'm like, man, I guess he's sick. Driving home, I remember him throwing up all in the car on the way home.
Okay.
Get home, I put him in bed and call the doctor. And I called the doctor and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. Here's the symptoms and all that. And he's like, sounds like he has the flu, some type of stomach bug. Shouldn't be a big deal. Like, well, I don't even remember what they say at the time.
Yeah.
And randomly, I'm like, hey, while I'm on the phone with you, can I ask you a question? He's been peeing a lot and being thirsty all of a sudden, but like will not contain his pee.
Mm-hmm.
And the nurse on the phone was like, oh, that changes everything. I'm like, what do you mean that changes everything? It's like, I need to go talk to one of the doctors. I will call you right back.
Oh, gosh.
Do not go anywhere. So hang up. I'm like, that's weird.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, then the anxiety, right? You're like, what's going on?
Yeah, I have no patience to wait.
Probably less than 5 minutes later, they call. And it was a different person. It was the doctor. They're like, hey, this is serious. Ask me a few questions. I go, yeah, he's been peeing, all that. He's like, all right, I need you to listen to me. This is very important. Your son, I fully believe, is a type 1 diabetic. His body is in shock. He's going through something called DKA. And you need to go to the hospital right now. Do not delay. Do not do anything else. I need you to get your son out of bed right now. Get in and go to the hospital as quick as you can. Don't go to any hospital. I need you to go to this hospital.
Okay.
Walk into the emergency room and say, I believe my son's a type 1 diabetic. He's in DKA. He needs treatment right away. And I literally remember picking him up, and my son felt like he was almost lifeless in my arms. Like, it was... it was like a doll.
Like a rag doll.
Rag doll.
Yeah.
It's like holding a rag doll. Like, you could tell he was still breathing. He's alive, but he was that weak all of a sudden, right?
He or his eyes open?
Like, barely. Yeah, and so
then for some of you that are listening, we live in Orlando, and you were living in Orlando at the time, and there's one main hospital in town that is like the biggest hospital. Like, if there's a serious emergency, like, you want to go to this hospital.
Yes.
And then this hospital has the biggest child or kids hospital as well.
It's called Arnold Palmer.
Yeah.
Hey, Palmer. Never even actually put that one together for this. That is not why we came up with the name Palmer.
No.
But Arnold Palmer, famous golfer, loved children, donated all of his stuff, and he's the one that opened this hospital, and it is a fully children's hospital.
Named the first kids hospital, a part of Arnold Palmer, was Winnie Palmer.
Yes.
Which was named after his wife.
Yes.
And that's actually where I was born. Here in Orlando. Small world. So you get to the hospital.
Get to the hospital, go in.
Do you park, or do you just go to the very front of the emergency room?
I mean, I think I just went up to the emergency room. I don't even remember. Honestly, all of it was a blur.
Yeah.
And I remember getting in the car and driving, and I'm like, type 1 diabetes? That's so weird.
Yeah, so
what is type 1?
So did you have anyone in your family that you could think of right away that has type 1 diabetes, in your family?
I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't know what type 1 diabetes was.
Yeah.
I knew what type 2 diabetes was. Not great knowledge, but I knew a basic understanding. But I'm like, what is type 1? That doesn't make sense. When you get diabetes when you're overweight and you don't take care of yourself. How does a 2-year-old get diabetes?
Okay. And then you said that the doctor on the phone said I believe he's going into DKA.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
That is when your body literally goes into shock. Your blood sugar, at that point, Parker was probably high for 2 months or something like that. Over a month, 2 months. I don't remember exactly what his blood sugar is. I know it was over 600, 700. I think it was in that range. We've heard stories being in the thousands.
Yeah.
Definitely really high. And him being that for so long. And so his body hit a point where he was literally going into shock and shutting down.
So if somebody that's just listening doesn't have anyone with type 1 diabetes in their life, what's considered normal for a child for their blood sugars to be at?
Normal blood sugar is about 100.
Yeah.
That is the magic number. Now,
kind of for adults too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, I'm not an expert at this by any means, but I do believe that when you eat something, your blood sugar does spike up, but then your body produces insulins and it brings it right back down.
Yes.
Don't know what the timeline is on that, but it's not like a type 1 diabetic where their body doesn't produce produce insulin at all.
Because their pancreas
has died.
has died.
And so for Parker, his body was in shock.
Okay.
They got him in. They hooked him up to IVs. They started pumping him in with insulin. I don't even know everything they did.
Was he in the ICU? He got taken, I think, to the ICU, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
All I remember is this. He was in the hospital for 3 days. It took 3 days to get him to a normal spot.
Yeah.
And the doctor said if we waited a day or two, there's a very high chance he would have died.
Yeah.
Which is the crazy thing.
Oh, so sad.
And I hear so many horror stories where doctors miss, a child will be in this and they just think it's the flu because they don't check their blood sugar, right? And the only reason, this was the saving grace by God, that a thought popped in my head to tell the doctor about his extreme peeing.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for that, the doctor literally was like, yeah, let him sleep it off.
Yeah, he has the flu.
He has the flu.
He just needs to rest.
Yeah. We'll put up some medicine in him, and he would have died.
Yeah. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you have type 1 diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the hospital with him.
Yes.
And, what's going through your mind? Are the doctors asking you, do you have family that have type 1? What are the doctors saying to you guys at this point?
Again, I'll be completely honest. It was all a blur.
Yeah.
I do not even fully remember what all happened during that time, except for the fact that all of a sudden he's a type 1 diabetic. Emotions are all over the place. Never heard of anybody in my family having type 1.
Are your parents still in town at this point?
No, they have already gone. They drove back.
Okay.
They were getting back, pulling back into Tallahassee.
Okay.
At that point.
They were leaving that day after church.
After lunch to go back.
Okay.
So yeah, got back. I mean, I'm trying to remember, but it's it was just a roller coaster. And the doctors are like, all right, well, you're going to have to start learning how to take care of a type 1 diabetic. We're going to teach you how to read carbs. We're going to teach you how to give shots, calculate everything. He's have to be on a different type of diet, explaining everything. You got to prick his finger and walk him through. And I just remember sitting here, but how is this real life? How did I get here?
After you get diagnosed, what is the process? I know you're saying that the doctors kind of tell you okay, this is going to be a new way of life, but do they literally sit down with you and this is how you prick a finger? All those things I can't even imagine.
That is the part that's so surreal about it, is you are basically, you have a 24-hour, I guess I was in the hospital for 3 days, but you basically have a 24-hour crash course on how to become a type 1 diabetes caregiver expert, basically a nurse, of how to prick fingers, how to give shots. To me, giving a 2-year-old shots might be the worst thing in the world.
I can't even imagine.
Kids hate going to the doctor because of shots. Now my son is going to get at minimum 4 shots a day at 2 years old.
How did you explain this to Parker, who is 2.5 at this point? Did he get it? I don't even get it. I'm an adult. So, how did you go about explaining it to him?
There's not a way to explain it to a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
He does understand. He just knows he's in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
You try to talk to him the best you can, but he's 2 years old. He does not understand. And you have to just start teaching him how to be brave, encouraging, a lot of tears, a lot of pain, a lot of emotions.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When I first met Nick, and I came to his office, I saw a painting on his wall and I asked him, I was like, what is that from?
Yeah. And so
I actually have it.
This is it right here.
It's a Picasso painting by Parker.
Yeah. So this painting I have hanging up in my office to this day. It is my favorite piece of artwork, and I have a lot of great pieces. But the reason is during that 3-day period in the hospital, Parker's bored. They're trying to entertain him. They had a whole painting section for him. And so he went in there and they painted that. I took that painting and framed it, and it's been hanging in my office ever since.
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, so one other like main question I have about this is like, I came into your lives when there's so much technology, and thank God for technology.
Yes.
Like, I just can't even imagine. But talk us through those beginning stages of him getting diagnosed, because you don't get on equipment right away, right?
Yeah, it's different now, thank goodness. But they start telling us about pumps and Dexcons to monitor everything. I mean, that's great. So how we do that? And they're like, well, you're going to have to go through your insurance, and you get signed a doctor, and they do an exam, and then they have to like submit it to the insurance. And then
basically you have to prove you have type 1 diabetes.
Yes. And
during that whole like wait period.
What we were told is that there is a 6-month waiting period before the insurance will approve the pump and Dexcom, because you have to prove to them that they actually have type 1 diabetes, that it's not something else, because before they spend the money.
You would want your 2.5-year-old to have this.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And so it did. It took 6 months. 6 months of pricking his finger throughout the day. It was like once an hour, pricking his finger, trying to see where he's at, giving shots. It was a nightmare.
So when you're giving the shots of insulin, are they like, did the insulin last like long periods of time, or like how does that work?
When you're on a pump, you have your bolus and your basal, right? And so bolus is when you have a meal, you give a bolus to cover your food. Then the basal is giving you a little bit of insulin every hour or so to kind of even you out. So when you're on shots, you have a fast-acting and a long-acting insulin. And so in the morning, we would give him a long-lasting insulin that would last him throughout the 24-hour period, which was basically the same as a basal. And then the bolus is the whole typical, after a meal, you gotta, how many carbs? Oh, we gotta give him 1.5 units of insulin. Yeah.
Okay, so how was that first night? Like, I can't even imagine, like, I wouldn't have slept. Did you, like, those first few nights?
Yeah.
Were you so scared at night?
100%. It's one thing when you're in the hospital and you're like, oh, okay, I think I got this. And then you get home and you're like, oh, no, I don't have this.
Yeah, you're all alone.
You're all alone.
Yeah.
The only thing I can compare it to is for first-time parents, when you go home that first night with your baby and you've never had it
You're like,
before.
wait, you're not all coming home with us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? That's the best way I can compare it.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it is horrifying. And the scariest thing I think I was ever told, and it's 100% true, the thing that will kill you is also saving your life.
The insulin.
The insulin.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you have to have insulin to save your life.
But you can't have too much
But
of
if you
it.
give yourself too much, it can kill you. And that is horrifying, especially as a new parent.
So what, like, this might be a dumb question, but like, what did you do during the night? Do you even remember? Like, were you putting an alarm clock to wake up every certain amount of hours to check him? Like,
From what I remember, yes.
that's what you were doing?
Yep.
Wow.
And I will say, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. There are times where I actually feel like you have more anxiety managing diabetes when you have a Dexcom, because you're looking at it all the time, where
Oh, yeah.
when you're doing the finger pricks, like, you don't know.
Yeah.
So like, you check up, oh, my blood sugar is good right now. I'll check it again in a few hours.
Yeah.
And so you actually do kind of, in a weird way, have a little bit less anxiety, but it's definitely interesting, to say the least.
Oh, Lord. All right. So you guys are doing that. And then how long after his diagnosis did he get on equipment, and what was his first equipment that he was on?
Yeah, it was 6 months.
Okay.
He started out on the Omnipod. I like the idea of it being tubeless. This was before any of the smart technology, bolusing corrections. I forgot what Omnipod caused it, but for Tandem, it's the Control IQ. That was before any of this. And then he was on the Dexcom. It was the G5 at the time, if I remember. Yeah, G5.
So then when you got all that equipment, you got the app, the Dexcom apps, I'm assuming on your phone.
On my phone. Had to go get him a cell phone.
So he was how old when he got his first cell phone?
Basically like 3 years old. 3 years old has his own cell phone.
And I think we have to have like a whole other episode about parenting a preteen who's had a cell phone since they were 3, and that it's actually a medical device, and not to text all your friends to get on a video game to play.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Now you have this little boy. He has type 1 diabetes. Everyone's life has entirely changed. Because I know you've wanted to have more than one kid. Talk to me about that. Like, did you go speak to doctors to be like, hey, is there a test that we can take as the parents to see if we have it? Or like talk to me about that whole process. Because you had to go like pretty much down a family tree, right? To pinpoint if there was type 1 diabetes within the families.
I really look back and there was a lot of frustration. And again, a lot has changed in the last 10 years. During one of Parker's endo appointments, I had a conversation with the doctor saying, hey, what does this mean? I want to have another kid, but I don't want to have another kid if that means that person is going to come into the world and I know for sure it's going to have, type 1. Kind of sounds horrible saying that, but like, it's a conversation you have to think about.
Yeah.
And I just remember the doctors telling me, is it possible? Of course, but the chance of it happening is so slim. It's less than 1%. Don't worry about it. If you want to have more kids, have more kids. There was nothing about, hey, maybe you should get tested. I don't even know if there were tests back then to kind of find out. Like, it's something I went and got done later on, like about a year ago, and came back completely.
But so we'll touch on that test that we did, because we actually did that one together. But did they ask, like, is there any family history of it? Like, or is it just like, oh, like you just have a kid, like this is how it goes kind of thing?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, they were just like, they made it sound like the family history didn't even really matter.
Okay.
Like there's nothing really linked. I mean, yes, if you have family history, it's increased, but I was told statistically it's less than 1% chance that a sibling would also get it. Now, what's interesting is we were listening to a doctor speak, Touched by Type 1 this weekend, had a doctor come speak to a bunch of the parents, and there's a lot of great studies coming up.
Yeah.
And he actually mentioned, which I never knew this, but the highest chance of somebody getting type 1 is if they have a sibling.
A sibling.
Which is, in his words, he says it's actually 8%.
Mine was blown for that when the doctor said that, because I'm like, I mean, obviously I wasn't in your life during this, but I know that you've told me that the doctor said there's like less than a 1% chance that you have another baby and the baby will have it as well.
Yeah. I mean, it was horrifying.
So it's even higher percentage rate for a sibling to get type 1 if they already have a sibling that has type 1 over the mother having type 1.
Yes.
Which really blew my mind.
That blew my mind too. To me, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, I would get it. Like, if they would have said, oh, it's, you got an 8% chance to get it if your mom has it.
Yeah.
And then maybe the siblings all have like a 2, 3, 4% chance. But the fact that it's higher chance for a sibling than if the mom has it, like, blows my mind.
Yeah. Insane. Then now kind of fast forward, you've always wanted to have more than one kid.
Yes.
You come from a bigger family. Talk to me about the thought process of having a second kid, and were you nervous? Like, what were your feelings around it?
Yeah. So, man.
It's a loaded question.
I know. There's a lot. All I know, I was scared.
Yeah.
But, the doctors just was real just real chill, and eventually happened. And, I had my daughter, Evie.
And how far apart are Evie?
They are, they're 3.5 years apart. Things, went on for a while.
So then Parker is like full on in his journey with type 1 diabetes. Yep. You guys have a baby, another baby, you have a girl, and life is good, right? Like, she's perfect, she's healthy, life is going good.
Life was going good. 2020 was a crazy year for most people.
Everyone.
Surprise. And in November of 2020, Evie was 4.5 years old at the time, and she was then diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And we just celebrated 4 years.
Yes.
She's 8.5. We just celebrated her diaversary,
Her
year
fourth
of having it.
diaversary, which was so cute because we asked her what she wanted to do. It was during the week, so they had school, but she is very into dancing right now. So she wanted to watch Riley Arnold, which is a professional dancer on Dancing with the Stars right now, who also has type 1.
Yes.
Watch her YouTube video of how she got diagnosed with type 1, because she got diagnosed later on in life. So she was 16, I believe, when she was diagnosed. But just seeing Evie, she was so into the video, watching it. And it was funny because Riley was sitting on the couch with her mom, like sharing the story, and she had this like fluffy blanket. And Evie looks at me and she's like, "Beck, can I go get my blankie from my bed?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then she like comes, and it's funny because Evie's was pink and Riley's was blue. It's like they had matching blankets, but it was a super cute experience. And then I cooked her favorite dinner, and we had baked some cookies for her. But yeah, I can't believe it's been 4 years. But okay, so talk to us about that. Like, how did Evie's diagnosis all come about?
Yes, because hers was very, very different. During 2020, I also went through a divorce during that time. It was very different, but even leading up to it, you had this anxiety of, well, what if Evie's gonna do it? Especially when she was in that 2.5, 3 range. So every once in a while, if you thought maybe she was peeing a little bit more than normal, like you start checking her blood sugar, like you would prick her finger and check. And it was always fine. Most of 2020, I was the single dad taking care of the kids.
You had primary.
I had primary custody because the mom was in and out of the house doing her own thing, kind of. The kids were staying with me full time during that. And then 2 months before she was diagnosed is when the mom got her own place that she went to live. And that's when we started doing the split household.
Yeah.
So literally 2 months after that happened is when Evie was diagnosed. She was at her mom's house, and the mom happened to check her blood sugar.
Because I think she was having like a peeing, like she was peeing a lot or something during that weekend, and was drinking a lot.
Pricked her finger. I think she was around, wasn't anything super crazy. I think she was like 350, something like that. She called me and was like, "You're not going to believe this, but I just checked Evie's blood sugar and she's 350. Again, a little bit of your soul just dies.
Yeah, like I just...
At that point.
Yeah.
I actually got Parker. The mom took Evie to the hospital.
Evie then comes home after being diagnosed now with type 1 diabetes. She wasn't at the hospital very long.
Just literally a few hours in the hospital.
Talk me through how you communicated that to Parker, that now his sister has type 1 diabetes as well, and like, how did that go down?
Yeah, so at that point, Parker was, I believe, 8 years old. And, I mean, he knew. But, like, when she left to go, he knew, and he was bawling. I mean, it was so sweet because he was like, I don't want my sister to have type 1 diabetes.
I know. We actually talked about this during Evie's diaversary the other night. I asked Parker, I was like, were you sad when you found out that Evie had it? And he was like, I was so upset. I did not want my little sister to have it and live like the life that I was having to live. And
what's crazy, though, is during that time, Evie actually probably handled it the best because she's like, oh, this is normal. Like, this is, my brother has this.
Yeah.
Like, she thought as a 4-year-old that, like, oh, this is just normal. Yeah. Everybody eventually gets it.
Yeah.
And now she's finally hit that level and she's like her brother.
Yeah.
And so she took it really well. It was crazy because having a second one was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. You know, still hard. You don't want it. It is a situation where, and this is for anybody who maybe is in the situation or just found out that maybe you had a second one. The jump from having the first one is insane. It is so hard. But once you add the second one in, You already know what you're doing. You don't have to learn anything new. Yes, you're upset. The emotions are there, but you already know what to do. So it's not that bad adding a second one. The worst part about it is literally just having alarms going off double the time. In the middle of the night,
So
during the day,
alarm.
all that. Like, that is literally the worst part about it, but you already know what you're doing.
Yeah. With now Evie having it, do you feel, because now knowing what you know, obviously, about type 1 diabetes and how it can come about and everything, do you feel like her stress or the trauma of the divorce and now living in two homes and you and their mom co-parenting, like, do you feel like that brought out the type 1 diabetes in her?
I fully believe that 100%.
Yeah.
Like, they always say that something shocks the body.
Yeah.
And I know they used to say it's an illness, but I've heard that it could be emotional and all that. And some I would love to kind of deep in more, but I have always thought to myself, it was 2 months after the kids didn't really understand. They were
2
young.
months living in
Yeah.
two different, like, two homes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was like 2 months of them going back and forth to two different homes. And I think that's when the realities of everything kind of really kicked in. And divorce is very hard on kids. But I fully believe the shock of that was the catalyst that, kicked off Evie's diabetes.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about co-parenting when you have two kids with type 1 diabetes.
Co-parenting is already hard.
Yeah.
It's even more difficult and challenging having them in separate households, right? You're having to divide up all the supplies. We don't always have the kids, with us, only with us half the time. And so you still have the Dexcom app. You see what's going on. Why are the kids high? Why are they low right now? There's a lot of emotions, and knowing that you cannot be there for your kid during that time.
Yeah.
That is, I think, one of the hardest parts, outside of the fact that you're just trying to balance all the supplies and doctor's visits and all of that type of stuff.
Yeah. Can't imagine. Well, I can't imagine because I'm now married to you. So
Yeah.
kind of go through it too as well. When I first met you, you were very like hone in on self-care and like having hobbies that you enjoyed to partake in to take your mind off of it. Kind of funny fact, when I first met Nick, he was in the process of building his time machine.
My DeLorean time machine. Yep.
So when the kids would go to bed, you were in your garage working on the time machine.
Yep.
Yeah. Talk people through, like, how did you come to realize, like, I need to also take care of myself? Because if I don't, like, I'm not going to be the best to take care of my two kids who have a disease that, they require 24-hour care.
It was a crazy time for me. I just knew that life moves on no matter what.
Oh, and to add in, with Evie, this was during the pandemic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. This is all during the pandemic as well. World was kind of coming back, especially in Florida, but for the most part, yes, you're still dealing with the COVID environment, and even trying to go to doctor's offices and everybody having to wear masks and all that. Definitely a crazy time. So I'm glad you pointed that out and reminded us. Yeah. I knew that you have to just move on. I've already dealt with this once with Parker. So it was hard. There's more sadness than I think fear. I just knew that I had to take care of myself at the end of the day. During that time, I really, spent a lot of time focusing on friendships, going out and doing things, finding new hobbies, putting myself into my hobbies that I currently do. I play a lot of board games, do some disc golf or something, building my time machine. All those type of things, especially like whenever I had the kids, I put 100% of my effort into them during that time. And then when they would go to their mom's house, I would then focus on myself. And it's whatever's going to make me happy, get my mind off of it. I cannot worry about what's going on. They're not with me. I just got to focus on myself at the end of the day, because that's what's going to be best for my kids. And, part of that too was actually even like the dating world. Like we kind of touched on it in our last episode. I was just in this mindset where I don't even want to worry about dating. I first off thought to myself, who would want to date me? Somebody who has 2 kids with type 1 diabetes.
Me.
This beautiful woman. But I literally remember telling myself, well, I'm just going to focus on my kids and myself until the kids are like out of the house, and then maybe I'll focus on myself, see if I can find somebody.
So like,
Yeah, that would have been 14 years.
yeah, oh, that's,
Yeah, 14 years. Yep.
yeah. And I think one thing that I really want to point out to everyone listening and to you as well is the strength I feel like you always have and you always carry with yourself. And I think it really lies into the faith that you have. Like, you're very grounded in your faith. And a lot of these situations of like you were explaining, like, okay, like they're not at my house, like there's nothing I can do about it, like I can't worry about it. Like that takes a lot of like strength and faith, because I mean, I'm an anxiety driven person. I would literally be waiting for my phone to ring and it'd be like the worst possible thing could be happening with now 2 kids with type 1 diabetes. You should feel really proud of yourself that you have a lot of strength and positivity, and that rubs on to the kids as well.
Yes.
Because if they see their parent like being able to handle it and being like, okay, we're going to do this. Hey, we're all warriors. Like, we're all in this together. Like, you're so strong. You can handle it. That gives the confidence to these little kids that just don't know any better, you know?
Yeah, but at the same time, dealing with this disease is so hard.
Yes.
And if it wasn't for Rebecca in my life, well, she says I'm strong. I'm not strong all the time. I have my bad days. I break down. I lose it. I don't have enough sleep. I've been up multiple times. Why will their blood sugar not go up
You're running
or drop?
doors.
Running into doors, you know.
Yeah. I decided to paint them black, and then the hallway's dark. So, yeah.
Yep. You've also been that amazing support system for me, because whenever I am struggling, you are there as my encouragement. And I really appreciate and thank you so much for that, because this disease is hard. And I did it for a year as a single dad. And it is hard for anyone. It's going to be hard for any parents to deal with 2 kids or even 1 kid with type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
Doing it by yourself for a year was hard. And yes, I had family helping. My parents ended up moving down here and helping, and were a part of my life a lot and did a lot of great things. So I wasn't alone, but like at the end of the day, I'm at my house by myself.
Like sleeping every night by yourself.
By myself, right? And that's what's different about it. And so now having that support system in Rebecca is absolutely so important. And I appreciate it, because like you have been the best support. And more importantly, this is something I sort of definitely want to point out. You have encouraged me to, one, get better at managing type 1 diabetes, understand it more, right? What can I do better? Don't settle for just, okay, I'm getting the job done. What can I do to manage their blood sugar better? Then get more involved with the community effect of things, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going on 10 years. It wasn't up until maybe in the last 2 years that I even started meeting people in the type 1 diabetes world, getting involved, going to events.
I think you really, when I first met you, only really knew of one other family that had a kid with type 1.
I only knew one other family with type 1 diabetes, and it was crazy. I never really went and got involved with it. And so you encouraged me to do that, and that's a big reason why we're here today with Palmr.
Yeah. What kind of message do you have for new parents that either just recently got a diagnosis for their kid, or they're a few years into it, they're thinking about having a second kid, or maybe they just realized that their second child has type 1 as well? Like, what is some advice you would give to them?
The biggest thing is you are stronger than you realize. You are resilient. Like, go out there and just do it. You can do it. Believe in yourself. And then with that, you got to take care of yourself. That's where the self-care comes in. It's a little bit different for me because I only have the kids half of the time. But for the people who don't have that, there's pros and cons. You have to find time to get away and reset. Like, I hear about these camps that kids go to and give parents a week to get away and go on vacation. I know a lot of parents who do that. Like, you have to do that. Find somebody who can understand enough to take care of your kids' blood sugars, to go out, have date night, go do your hobbies still. But because if you do not take care of yourself at the end of the day, how do you expect to be the best for your kids?
Yeah.
That's my one message I would really kind of encourage other parents out there doing it.
And I think this episode is a perfect example of why we're here, why we are doing Palmr, why we're doing the clothing brand, and also why are we doing this YouTube channel to connect with everyone and just kind of be that reminder that you're not alone. We are at least here with you.
Yes.
Even if we don't know you personally, like, we're here. We want to hear the stories. Like, it's funny because I really get into these like messages when someone messages us on Palmr and they feel like brave enough to share their story with us. That means so much to me, and I want to be there and just talk to them. And I end up talking to them like I've known them for years in my life. Like, Nick is like, oh, you're making another bestie on our DMs. And it's just true.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful thing that happens in your life that you have to have support around you, or else you'll feel like you're just crumbling all by yourself.
Yeah, and you need that support for yourself. This is such a amazing community, coming together, getting to know more people. It's like when you encourage them to get more in the community, like you just meet amazing people who actually get you and understand what you're going through in your life, and because they've gone through it. And so that's why this is so amazing. And as Rebecca said, please reach out to us, share your story, send us a DM, leave us a comment. We would love to talk to you. Our long-term goal with this podcast or show is to bring on guests. And we're working on it. We have a few people lined up that we've been talking to. We want to share other people's stories. I think you guys will really enjoy it. So make sure you guys subscribe and follow along. And we got a lot of big things to plan. Yes.
So subscribe, like, all the things.
All the things.
Because we're also on Spotify and Apple Music as well. So if you're in the car or working out, you can listen to us on there. We are mainly on YouTube, where you can see our faces and follow along. So thank you so much for being here again, and we look forward to the next one. Bye, Palmr fam.
Bye.